Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. This is the first day of the Caring Conference, Our Resilient Spirit. We are gathering over the next 2 days to talk about resilience and how we got through this past 4 months or so when winter was really difficult, and what we've learned about resilience throughout our life when we've experienced challenges. I would invite you to share in the chat room as I go through today's presentation. Just a reminder, we're going to go about 50 minutes and take a 10-minute break between workshops. I'm Denise Brown. I founded an organization called the Caregiving Years Training Academy last year after I sold an online community that I had managed for about 24 years. So I have been working with those who care for a family member since 1990. I started by managing a respite program in a rural county in New Jersey. And I also help my parents who are 89 and 86 and live independently about 10 minutes from me. They live independently, but we help them live independently. You know how that goes. Okay, so today we're going to start off with a workshop around resilience is energy. Okay, so I started thinking about energy around resilience, and it occurred to me that a lot of our energy comes from being reviewed. And I think about our life right now puts us in situations where we are reviewed regularly. In essence, we are on stage. So I'd love for you to tell me in the chat room, when do you feel on stage? So you can feel on stage in the workplace, in your family, at home, and other parts of your life. So as I mentioned, I help my parents who are 89 and 86, and I often feel on stage with my parents. So yesterday I went to the dermatologist with my dad. We stopped at a local grocery store here in the area called Happy Foods. It's where a lot of older adults shop because it's small and it's easy to navigate. When we got back to their apartment, I parked the car. I walked around to get the groceries. I was also trying to get my umbrella together. My dad just handed me a bag without looking to see if I was ready to receive the bag. I dropped the bag and it had the eggs in it. So then we went upstairs, and so I had to try to figure out what to do with these eggs. My dad said, just crack them, I'll use them for scrambled eggs. And my mom was sitting in her spot just watching. Really upset about this egg situation, upset about my use of paper towels because I was using paper towels to wipe my hands because I was worried about spreading salmonella because of the eggs that I was cracking, and also judging me about other things. And I think about being reviewed, and I think about my parents reviewing me as a young girl and then throughout my life. So even in our family systems, we can feel reviewed. We can feel like we are trying to get a good review, even from our parents when we are 58 years old. So let's see. Oh my gosh. So Bruce is sharing in the chat room that he feels on stage when the nurse is in their home to administer the treatments for his wife. And also 100% of the time it worked. Right, exactly. So Kathy is also sharing that she feels on stage at work and in the community. And so Deb is also adding at work and at home. And if you think about it too, if you are sharing on social media, there's a review process there too. People are reviewing what you share. So this idea that we are constantly on stage, oh my gosh, and being reviewed takes away our energy. It takes away our ability to bounce back, because resilience is energy. Katie is also sharing in the chat room that with her mom constantly. And thank you, Katie, for sharing that, because that's how I feel with my mom too. It's constant. I'll just share one other story about my mom. So I started grocery shopping for them. And the pandemic was convenient for me because I was able to take on tasks without it being, I don't think it's smart for you guys to continue grocery shopping. It became, I think it's safer if I do the grocery shopping for you. When I first started grocery shopping, my mom would review the receipt to make sure I got the best bargain, bought the right product, and then would really just give me a hard time if I didn't do it right. So I got reviewed when I came home with the groceries. Others are sharing that home life with family, you feel reviewed at work. And yes, absolutely at work. And I would also say if you're a parent, so I've been talking about helping my parents, but if you're on the other side, I think as parents, you can feel reviewed as well. You can feel reviewed by other parents, by other family members. Okay. And the review process, I think, is threefold. We review ourselves, we review others, and others review us. And I'm wondering which of these three feels like the worst to you? Being reviewed by others, reviewing yourself, or you being the reviewer of others? For me, it's my own self-review that feels like the worst. And that's why I started thinking about resilience as energy as it relates to ourselves. Yeah, thank you, Deb. I feel the same way. It's when I review myself that I feel like the energy is harder to rebound from. So when I think about going through our day, we are looking for the energy to manage our tasks, our responsibilities, our decisions, our events, our tasks, whatever we need to get done throughout the day, we need the energy to do it. So even if it feels like it's a task like cleaning, if we are reviewing ourselves as we're cleaning, that task gets harder and we require more energy because we're using emotional energy at the same time we're using physical energy. And I think we can always take a good nap and feel refreshed physically, but emotionally, that takes us harder to rebound and regain that energy. That's why I think it's so helpful when we think about reviewing as a way that takes away our energy. So I'm curious, when was the last time you received a good review? And when was the last time you received a bad review? And what's the emotion when you receive a good review? What's the emotion when you receive a bad review? So I think about the good review as just really inspiring us. It motivates us. It gives us the energy to keep going. And it's those bad reviews that make us want to just sit on the couch, grab the tub of ice cream, and watch Netflix. Because we hurt. The bad review hurts us. Now, people will say, oh, don't worry about that. It doesn't matter what they say. It does matter, right? Because it's who we are as human beings. And I also think we're all in a profession where we are out there in the world caring for and caring about people. That means that we are tender-hearted. That means that we are very sensitive. We are able to step in and help someone because we know how to do it. We are naturally empathetic. That's awesome. That's an amazing gift. I think we can all agree that the world needs more people like that. The hard part for us, though, is because we are such deeply feeling people, that bad review is something we feel. We also might be people pleasers. And if we feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't please someone, and we got a bad review, it can feel like we failed. And that's hard. It's hard to feel like you are failing in your day, in your family, at work. And I think this pressure to always be your best, to be performing at the highest level possible is really difficult. So I have my sister, I'll say it this way. My sister has triplets who are 22 years old, and they all run college level track and cross country. And when they were in high school, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, they are breakout stars. And one nephew in particular, Jack, really was amazing. You could see it was just this natural gift. The hardest part for him was not the running, it was the mental game, because he would review himself before the race. And he would stress out so much during the race because of these internal reviews that it was hard for him to really run at his peak. So even though he excelled and he did great, he never, in high school, at least for a period of time, really achieved his best because he was going through these internal reviews. And the stress, the review impacted his ability to run the way he wanted to. So I think about that for ourselves too. So think about a risk or a chance you wanted to take. Maybe there was an opportunity and you thought, oh, I'd love to do this, but I worry about the bad review. And so the bad review keeps you on the sidelines. Okay, so I think about a bad review as a setback. Something I try to encourage myself to do is take the emotion out of the meaning of a particular experience. So if I think of a bad review in a bad way, it's going to take away energy because I'm having this significant emotional response. But if I think of it instead as a setback, it's just a fact. I had a setback. Then I can think about, how do I manage this? So we can use our energy to manage the setbacks. Other part about this that I think is helpful is if I think of a setback as a fact, I know that everybody also has setbacks. It's not just me. I don't take it personally. So I'd love to hear an experience you've had that felt like a setback recently. When did it feel like something didn't go the way that you wanted? So just recently, I applied to an organization to approve one of my training programs in order for them to provide CEUs to their members. So oftentimes people will take certification programs for CEUs, just like you're attending this workshop. So the organization that I was applying to really gave me a hard time about the fact that I was calling my programs certifications. I believe that is the right term. They believe it's a certificate, but I know it to be a certification. So the setback is I probably will lose someone who wants to enroll in the training program because the organization that she wants to get CEUs through won't approve my program. So that felt like a setback. Oh my gosh, geez, you just think, oh my gosh, I put so much energy and time, really the wisdom of others into this program to make it the best possible program. And I can't believe it's wordsmithing. That's going to keep it from being approved. That's a setback. And I was talking about this setback with Beth, who's on with us today. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just more bad news. I just don't know if I can endure more bad news. And so she listened to me and she just posted a lot in the chat room. So I, really just let it out. Oh my gosh, I'm so discouraged. And then I started thinking about it later and I thought, oh, I have the answer. I know what I can do. And it becomes a better version of the program. It's not going to get me what I need through that organization, but it's going to get me where I want to go with the training program to the next level. So it became an opportunity instead of a setback. It's looking at it in a different way. Okay, I understand the challenge, but how can I use that challenge in a way that improves the training program? And then I had the idea and I figured it out. And then it felt like, okay, I am energized. I can keep going. That wasn't bad news. That was just an opportunity to pivot. And I think about it this way. When you've had a setback, you want to get back to the moment. That's really all we're looking to do. And I think about this process of acknowledging a setback in order to get back to the moment is also being honest about what is hurt during that setback. Again, we are really deeply feeling people. We need to acknowledge our hurts. I don't think it helps us to go around pretending we're not hurt. I also think if we pretend we're not hurt, we never give ourselves the opportunity to heal from the hurt. So in my example that I just shared, I expressed my hurt. I went through for probably 30 minutes of this hurts, this hurts. I didn't use those words, but that's what I was expressing. And then once I got that out, then I was able to say, oh, I see. We have to be able to articulate what hurts because of the setback. So I think about a setback hurting, perhaps our feelings, perhaps our pride. So in many ways, what happened with that setback I just experienced hurt my pride. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much time I've devoted to making the training program the best I could. I really feel that I have to deliver an excellent training program. And then to have someone say, you just feel like, oh my gosh, that hurts my pride. I also think we can look at our expectations get hurt during a setback. I wonder if someone can share an example of how an expectation got hurt during a setback in the chat room. So in my family, I have 4 siblings. My older sister is not involved in helping our parents, and she's not involved in the family. She has really, in essence, physically removed herself as well as emotionally. She lives in the area. She could be a part of the family system, but she has said, I'm done with you people. Okay, so when my parents started to need help, the expectation was that we would all help. We even had a family meeting organized by this sibling where we all talked about how we would support and help each other. And then, honest to goodness, I think it was 6 months later where she said, I'm out. You're not doing what I'm telling you to do, so I'm not going to play anymore. I'm taking my bat and ball and glove and going somewhere else. So this expectation that we would all get along and help just really never came to be. In reality, she brought a lot of drama to the game. You can kind of get that feeling. So to have her removed makes the game easier for us because we don't have to manage her drama while we're being reviewed by my parents. But for my mom, it has been devastating. And it's been hard to manage that heartache for her. So her setback is really about her feelings. Okay, so Katie is putting herself out there. Katie, you have courage in trying to put together a paid class. This is hard work, Katie. So she taught a free class, which basically becomes a lead generating activity for a paid class. So she had 16 people, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat room, Katie. She had 16 people sign up for the free class, and she needed to have 6 of those 16 sign up for the paid class, and she has 4 right now. Katie, that's a huge win. That is a huge win. That's huge. As someone who does events all the time, that is huge. That is significant. And you will get those final 2 because you've already gotten 4. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can pivot to find another way to position that paid offering to those other 12 that will enroll your last 2. You can do it. Okay. We can also have possibilities hurt. And I wonder what that means to you guys. So feel free to share in the chat room what it means to have possibilities hurt. And I think of the chance that we see that does not turn out in the way we want it to. So I think of my sister who had the triplets. She married in her late 20s. She and her husband did everything right financially. They prepared to have children. They bought the house to fill the house with children. They had really organized their life in such a way that they could be the best parents possible. And then she was struggling with infertility and she couldn't have children. So they went the IVF route. So that setback around what's it going to be like for me to grow my family and have it happen in a different way is a setback in the possibilities. Our setbacks can hurt our heart too. For instance, with my mom, her heart hurts because in essence, she's lost a daughter. I also think it can hurt our soul. When I think about our soul hurting, I think about it as the way we show up in the world and how the world shows up for us. And that can hurt our soul if the world shows up for us in a way that isn't the way that we show up for the world, if you know what I mean. So we might show up and be kind and compassionate and giving, and then the world shows up in a way that isn't that. It's unkind, it's ruthless, it takes, it's hard. That can hurt our soul. It can also hurt our spirit, and I think about our spirit as related to our motivation. If we hurt in our spirit, it can feel hard to stay motivated. So for instance, maybe we've really committed to eating well and exercising regularly. And that commitment to our wellness might happen during a time that's particularly stressful for us. And the stress keeps on the weight. Our spirit hurts because we've been trying so hard to see results. And because of our life circumstances, because we're in a particularly stressful situation, it's not working out the way we want it. And it's hard to stay motivated. That's when we fall back into, why bother? Here I am eating right, exercising every day, and nothing is changing. Why bother? I also think the setback can hurt our courage. So Katie gave an example in the chat room of the courage to go out there, put the work out into the world, and invite people to purchase the work. That's courageous. And sometimes it feels like our courage wasn't rewarded. We didn't get the results we wanted. We took the risk and it just didn't turn out. Okay, so Felicia is sharing in the chat room. She's trying to seek help for a loved one for treatment and support, but they refuse or feel that the treatment or support aren't needed. And as this happens, you watch them hit a downward spiral. That's a great example. So Felicia, what hurts for you in that particular situation? Go ahead and type in the chat room, what's hurting? I could take a guess, but I'd love for you to share the words that hurt because of that. And I think it's this idea of having to let go too. So we offer opportunities for others, and then maybe they refuse the opportunity or decide it's not the right opportunity. And we have to let go. I think of life as really just a series of letting go. We just let go over and over and over. Ultimately, when we're caring for a family member during their last years, the ultimate act of letting go is their death, letting go at their end. I would love to know too, what words are missing from my list? How does a setback hurt you? What words are missing? So Felicia is sharing, it's more so knowing that the issue will not go away, yet being hopeful that they will open up and allow someone to help, right? So it's keeping hope. So actually, it's hope that hurts, right? If we are really supporting someone, wishing that they do better, being with them, we keep hope for them. And if the hope disappears, it can be difficult. Hope is a great word to think about as it relates to what hurts as well. Okay, and then think about any words that you would add to this list. That would be great. I am going to, Deanne, can you mute we're just getting a little feedback. and it's on the iPhone. I don't know if you can help. Yeah, and Felicia's adding, the words are not describable when it's your child, and the instinct to never give up, but give them space to figure it out safely is one of life's most difficult challenges. And I think too, it's the challenge of loving someone through such pain and heartache. Ultimately, I guess when we think about the review process, I suppose what hurts most when we feel like our offers, our talents, our gifts are reviewed is that it feels like we're not getting the love we need, want, and deserve. Yeah, thank you, Felicia, so much for sharing about that. We are giving good thoughts to you and your situation. So if we know that in a setback, we need to get back to the moment, it gives us an opportunity to take action. So I think about the review hurts, right? And then we're processing the pain, but sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, but what do I do with this pain? Where do I go? What do I do with it? And I think the moment is what allows us to manage that pain. So some suggestions about what we can do in the moment. So in the moment, I can communicate. So I gave an example about communicating with Beth the other day when I was like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what just happened. More bad news. You know, the other thing that we can do in the moment is exit. I think about the beauty of having an exit strategy. And so I guess you could say I exited yesterday when I was being reviewed by my mom and I knew I was never going to pass the mustard. I mean, that was it. She was never going to give me a positive review. I knew it was my time to leave. So I used an exit strategy. I said, you guys are good. I'm going to go. I didn't stay and argue. I didn't stay and be snippy back to her. I was kind and exited. And I think we can do that in situations as well. We can also breathe, and Carlos in the next workshop is going to help us with the breathing as well, because we know that sometimes when we're really stressed out, we're not taking those deep breaths. The other thing about breathing is we need to be able to breathe to think, to manage the stress. So if we can take a moment to breathe, we can give ourselves a moment to manage the stress. And I also think in the moment we can forgive ourselves and others, our situation. Maybe it is a service, a provider, maybe it's our faith, whatever it is that felt like it was the expectation that didn't turn into the reality we wanted, we can forgive. It's not about the forgetting, it's about the forgiving. It's that release. And we can forgive ourselves for being human, imperfect, people who make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And I think sometimes we forget that others make mistakes too. We think we are the only ones who make mistakes. Beverly, I agree. Beverly is sharing in the chat room that she thinks the exit is so important. I think that is so true. We can give ourselves permission to exit. And I would also mention about the exit. We can exit an emotionally charged situation, and we can go back to that situation in a day or a week or a month and just communicate. I wanted to just touch base about what happened last month. I didn't feel right about how we left it. Tell me where you are with it. So Katie's also sharing in the chat room, I need to remember to pause and breathe. Even when I exit, then I keep thinking about the situation afterward. Exactly. That's why I feel like the forgiveness part is so important, because then I stop thinking about it. I stop wringing my hands and fretting and trying to change what has already happened. I cannot change what has already happened, but I can actually do something about it. And I actually was thinking about something else this morning. There was someone I knew many years ago who was a part of my online community, and I don't feel like I supported her in the way that she really deserved. And I was thinking today, you know what? Email her and apologize. So we can forgive ourselves, but there are times in our lives when it's okay to ask others to forgive us. And even if they can't, just sending that note of, I really blew it with you. I am so sorry is enough. To know that we did that is a way that we can then forgive ourselves. So asking for forgiveness then starts into that, okay, now I can forgive myself. In the moment, we can also move. We can go out and get fresh air. We can move around the block. We can move for a longer walk. If we have time, we can move in our house. So I had a situation a couple months ago where a colleague became really angry with me, but I don't know why. I asked her and I just never got a response. It was just silence. So when I was really upset about the fact that I knew she wasn't going to talk to me about it, I went and did a 7-minute workout that I try to do it 3 times a week. So in this particular time when I did this 7-minute workout, I was able to do something that I hadn't been able to do, which is a side plank, because I was so mad. I had the energy to do a side plank. And so now I can do the side planks every time I do that 7-minute workout. So I think, gosh, that movement, using that anger in a good way, which was to actually work out. So I worked out the anger, really was helpful. So now when I think about that particular colleague, I actually attach her to the success of a plank, a side plank. And it just changes the narrative around that relationship where I have with her. Or I hope that at some point she'll come back and say, this is why I was so mad at you. And I can say, oh, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I get it. I get why you were mad at me. And the emotion that I would feel and that charge I would add to the conversation is gone, because now I think, because of her, I was able to do a plank in my 7-minute workout. Okay, so ignore is another option. So Felicia's sharing about ignore. So ignore is it helps you not consume, but allows time to process and think. Absolutely. I think there are times where we just have to say, okay, I'm receiving this, but I am also ignoring it because I need to think about it later. And I also think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we're going to get a review and it's okay for us to completely ignore it. So if you followed Brene Brown, she does a lot of work about vulnerability, and she has this great Netflix special where she talks about, in essence, being reviewed. And she talks about we're in the arena, putting ourselves out there, being courageous about living our full life. And there's people in the audience telling us we're doing it wrong. You can ignore all those people in the audience. If you haven't watched that Netflix special, I would encourage you to do it. So you can ignore, I guess, to use a term that's popular out in the culture, the haters. Just like if you are doing a workshop or a presentation and you ask for evaluations, you always throw out the one that was most glowing and you throw out the worst one. And then the middle is really the reality. So it's okay to ignore those who give you bad reviews because they are having a bad day and don't know where to put it other than into a bad review of you. We can also clarify. We can ask for more information. So in the moment when things are going sideways and you're like, what is going on? You can ask, what's going on? You can also say, it sounds like we're having a bad day together. What can we do to turn it into a good day? That's your pivot. We can also heal in the moment. Before we started today's workshop, I was telling Deanne that I like to open up my essential oils and diffuse them because it's that movement in the moment that is healing for me. It's very odd, but it feels so easy to do. Just opening up that essential oil bottle, pouring a few drops in my diffuser is very healing for me. And then there's that aromatherapy that surrounds me. It feels so good. And then we can also decide in the moment. And that decision that we make is about options. What option do I have right now? Which option is right for me right now? And we can also communicate our decision with this caveat of right now, the right decision for me is this. If it changes, I'll let you know. Gives us an opportunity to revisit the decision later and then not feel like, oh my gosh, I made a decision. Now I have to tell everybody else that I undecided it. We just communicate. You know what? Right now, this is how it feels. This feels right. I might change my mind. And if I do, I'll let you know. I think sometimes too, we can be inundated with requests. So people might say, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And depending on where that request is coming from, family or workplace, sometimes it's helpful to say, I can't right now. What if you reach out to blah, 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 who could help? Sometimes I will just say, who else could help you with that? I don't say I can't, but that question makes it clear I'm not the person that could help. Who else could help? And just asking who else could help opens up the conversation around, oh my gosh, yeah, who else could help me with that? I hadn't thought about it that way. And then you could actually help someone think about who else other than you can help. And Deb is sharing in the chat room, sometimes I need to rethink my assumptions. Oh my gosh, Deb, that is beautiful. There's a new book out by Adam Grant, and he talks, I think it's called Think or something similar. And he talks about how we have to revisit our assumptions on a regular basis, that our assumptions aren't set in stone. And if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to rethink and redefine situations or systems in our life, we are not living fully. It's this permission to have a different view of the world that allows us to live fully in the world. Oftentimes we decide, okay, here's my opinion, I'm not going to change it, but that keeps us in the past. This ability to rethink, particularly assumptions, is what gets us moving into the present, positions us for the future. Especially because the assumptions that we might carry might have been true in 2019, but everything changed in 2020. So how are our assumptions current now? What's reflective of the reality now? Okay, so feel free to share in the chat room what other options you use in the moment that can help you feel better. So you've had a setback, now you want to get back the moment. You're going to take a moment to do something to help you feel better. I will also mention too that I do a lot of ignoring with my parents. So they'll say things and I'll just ignore it. And I decide not to take it on. Oh, okay. So I apologize for mispronunciation with your name, but Bilal, which is a beautiful name, and I hope I'm giving it that beauty that it deserves, actually goes to prayer, which I think is such a great coping strategy as well. You know, someone shared a prayer that they use during a workshop, which I thought was really powerful. And it's this prayer of, help me, help me, help me. And you say it 3 times and you give pause. And it's this idea of putting the courage out there to ask for help and then taking a moment to receive it. And it's said in a prayer form, help me, help me, help me. Okay. Yes, self-reflection, Margaret says, is key to understanding our assumptions. Yes, absolutely. Self-reflection. What's my part in this? What's my role in this? How did I contribute to this? Absolutely. It's actually a bit of a review process, that self-reflection, but we can control it in a way that it's helpful for us. What's the opportunity for me to be better? So I think about when I was a kid, I had a terrible temper. I mean, oh my gosh, like I had fist fights with other kids in the neighborhood that I started. I mean, I really had a temper. I had a temper. And I remember being 7 or 8 years old, standing in our home and thinking, I have got to be different. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to count to 10 going forward. I'm not just going to throw my fists out in the air. I'm going to count to 10. And so that was something that really helped me going forward. I would just count to 10. Okay, and Katie is sharing her mantra in the chat room, which is, I can do it. I know how. It's easy. I do my best. Of course, you have to remember to do it, right? Sometimes we're too stressed out to remember that. So I also do have prompts in my apartment that remind me of things that I can do, that I can remember to say that can help me. And then finally, there's someone else is sharing in the chat room. Sometimes I need to breathe because my action may be based on my feelings and mental health. Yeah, right. That particular day, that's so important too. It's based on how you're feeling and what your mental health is that day. And it might be different when I reframe my own thoughts. And it might be different after a good night's sleep or after a drink of water or after a meal. Absolutely. And I think that's why sometimes just exiting and doing something different, like taking a break. And Felicia is saying having silence, that can be really helpful too. I think solitude is really something that can be very healing. Solitude with music, solitude with journaling. That's a way for us to get back into the moment as well. And I would also say, I'm not a gardener, but I think about gardening. And I think that there is healing in that moment in the garden. We know that nature is a very healing environment. So if you can go into nature, if you can go into your garden, if you have one, that can be the moment that helps you. That can be a moment where you receive the beauty of the world in a way that makes you feel like the world has forgiven me. I'm good. I can get back out there in the world. I am healed. Okay, so it's this whole idea. When you've had a setback, get back to the moment. So if you can remember that phrase, oh my gosh, I've had a setback, I need to get back to the moment. And then go through the process of what hurts because of the setback, and then what you can do in the moment to feel better. That will get back the moment for you. Our life is in the moment, the present, and that will position you to go into your future. You can release the past. That's really what we're doing, is releasing the past. I wanted to share, as we close during the last 8 minutes or so, resilience reflections. And I started thinking about these. It sounds like I've had a tough year, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm not sure exactly what's been happening. I don't know if that's the pandemic, my parents who are really declining, and the world as it is just felt like it was very emotional for me. So at the beginning of the year, I had a setback, and I was talking to a couple colleagues about it, and they were like, keep going, Denise, you can do it. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to hear keep going. I could tell myself that, but what I really need to hear is a reflection of how resilient I am. I need a positive review of my resilience. So a resilience reflection happens when we feel like, oh my gosh, does anybody appreciate that I am here in the world? Does anybody see that right now life is unfair for me? Does anybody see the gift of my work to the world? Does anybody see that I feel like I really deserve better? I deserve a break. Does anybody see what I need in this moment? And can anybody help me so that my next moment's need is met? And I think about these resilience reflections as really this expression of love. So here's what an expression of love can sound like. I love how you are managing this situation. I love your insights about this situation. I love your honesty. I love your willingness to consider another perspective. I love how your values and priorities drive your actions and decisions. You can see how offering an expression of love can change the energy in a situation or in a conversation. I agree, Deb. This past year has challenged our resilience in so many aspects. And the reality is, I only thought of this idea of expressions of love because of the challenges. I felt so much better after I reflected on that conversation with my colleagues who really wanted me to feel better, but weren't telling me what I needed to hear to feel better. And it occurred to me, I needed someone to give me an expression of love. Because when life isn't going the way we want, what we need is love. And when someone can give us an expression of love about how we are in the world, we feel accepted and seen and appreciated in the world. It can be helpful too when you're in a situation where you think, gosh, I'm not sure what to say. I just don't feel like we're making headway, or we're on the same page, or that we're connected in a way that is important and powerful. An expression of love can help you create that connection. So, what do you think about these expressions of love? Just curious, you can share in the chat room. And I would also encourage you to think about what's an expression of love for yourself you can write today. And Katie, you could write yourself an expression of love around the fact that you've enrolled 4 people in a paid course. That's awesome. Your expression of love can be, I love how I've enrolled 4 people in my paid course. An expression of love that you guys can write for yourself could be, I love how I showed up today at this conference and listened and participated and really shared my honest experience with resilience. It could be that I love how I manage a tough situation by exiting with grace and compassion. Oh, Katie's up to 5 people. So there you go. So Katie, you're up to 5. That's awesome. So that the next one is right around the corner. Okay, yes. So Felicia is sharing, I love that I tried. And you can also add, I love that I tried and will try again. I love that I stay committed to better. Beverly is saying that her expression of love is, I matter. And it could be, I love that I matter. And you could also have an expression of love around your courage. I love that I get a chance to put my courage out into the world. Kathy is sharing in the chat room, I love that I keep going. Yeah, I love that too. I love that too. I completely agree, Felicia, that these expressions are mood changers and added motivation. And really, they just give us what we need, which is love. Again, the bad reviews feel like they take love from us. And why not give yourself a good review with an expression of love? And the reality is, you can have as many expressions of love ready on stickies all over in your briefcase, in your purse, on your mirror wall. And it could be that you have an expression of love that you share to yourself when you get out of bed, when you have lunch, and when you end your day. I think that they are such powerful and easy comforts for us. Yes, Katie's sharing that she has heart stickies, and these are perfect uses for your heart stickies, right? Yes. You also could journal around your expressions of love. So each day, at the end of your day, you could write in your journal your expressions of love for yourself for what you experienced throughout that day. And then you have a catalog of expressions of love that you can go to because you've documented them in your journal. Okay, so I would ask you to think about what's an expression of love you can write about today. Write it and have it ready to remind yourself. And then I just want to let you know that I actually have a gift for you. And there's a book that you can download for free beginning tomorrow. And it's a book that I wrote that's called Caregiving Lists of Your Courage, Hope, and Resilience. If you're in a situation where you're caring for a family member, the lists aren't to-dos, but are to believe about who you are. In addition, I do have another book that's coming out May 3rd. It's called Healing Words, and it gives you healing words that you can use when you are experiencing a caregiving fatigue. So I think about being tired from trying, from not having hope, from having difficult days. And I talk about 12 different fatigues in the book and then offer you healing words. And there's the address you can go to download the free book beginning tomorrow. And if you want, you can pre-order the Kindle book for Healing Words, which is $3. Okay, thank you all so much for being here. I am going to stop the recording because we're going to take a 10-minute break. Carlos is our next presenter, and he's going to start presenting at the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much. I feel so much better. You guys are making me feel, you guys are giving me an expression of love. So thank you all so much. See you in 10 minutes.